我们出台稳外资系列政策，持续打造投资中
表现恶劣的美方人员，对等采取签证限制措施。
U.S.-China tussle does not seem to be subsiding as it escalates beyond tariffs. China, on April 14th, said it has decided to impose visa restrictions on some U.S. personnel who have behaved badly on Tibet-related issues. The response came after Washington imposed additional visa restrictions on Chinese officials involved in policies governing foreigners' access to Tibetan areas. Speaking to reporters at a regular press briefing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian said that Tibet-related issues were China's internal affairs, and the U.S. abuse of visa restrictions on Chinese officials over Tibet seriously violates international law and basic norms governing international relations. Tibet affairs are purely China's internal affairs, and the U.S. abuse of visa restrictions on Chinese officials on Tibet-related issues seriously violates international law and basic norms governing international relations. In accordance with the relevant provisions of the Foreign Relations Law of the People's Republic of China, the Law of the People's Republic of China, and the Law on Foreign Sanctions, the Chinese has decided to take visa restriction measures against the U.S. personnel who behave badly on Tibet-related issues. At the same time, we oppose to any person from any country meddling in Tibetan affairs on the pretext of so-called human rights, religion, and culture, and to people with ulterior motives interfering with and destroying the peace and stability of Tibet on the pretext of visiting Tibet. The U.S. accused the Chinese Communist Party of refusing to afford U.S. diplomats, journalists, and other international observers access to Tibet and other Tibetan areas of China, and demanded unrestricted access to the areas for U.S. diplomats and others. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on March 31st that the United States imposed additional visa restrictions on Chinese officials involved in policies on access for foreigners to Tibetan areas. For far too long, the Chinese Communist Party has refused to afford U.S. diplomats, journalists, and other international observers access to the Tibet Autonomous Region and other Tibetan areas of China, while China's diplomats and journalists enjoy broad access in the United States. Rubio said in a statement, "Tibet is open. China welcomes friendly people from other countries to visit, travel, and do business in Tibet," Lin Jian told reporters. But China opposes the interference of any country or person in Tibetan affairs under the pretext of so-called human rights, religion, and culture. He added, "Foreign tourists are allowed to visit the far western region of Tibet providing they travel in groups and obtain a permit in advance. Diplomats and foreign journalists need to get the approval of Tibet's local authorities to go there. China seized control of Tibet in 1950 in what it describes as a peaceful liberation from feudalistic serfdom. International human rights groups and exiles, however, have routinely condemned what they call China's oppressive rule in Tibetan areas.